Right, misjudge, all person problems there. So this is from The Blood Plot by Summer Rose. I woke up in a terrible nightmare. I couldn't quite remember. I looked around wildly, heart racing as I took off my dream. Right as I came fully into the waking world, I noticed something that gave me chills. The air around me was tinged with red. For a moment, I had no doubt that the blood clot had come through. Then I shook the feeling off. It was just a trick my tired eyes were playing on me. I stepped out of bed, then froze as I heard a voice. I looked around and screamed as I saw a man sitting on my bed. I backed away and looked for a weapon. Aha! There it was on top of my dresser, the pocket knife I'd gotten for my 12th birthday. I grabbed it and held it out defensively. Relax, the stranger said. You don't really have the right to attack me, considering that this is my town. He paused and looked around. This was even the house I lived in. Not the room I slept in, though. Realization hit me. You're the mayor? I gasped. He smiled. Yes, indeed. Murdered in the middle of the night. I slept just down the hall. But I am restless. I want revenge.
All right. Yay. Thank you so much. How wonderful to have a teacher here as well. As very cool. Very much we have teachers as partners. I know in this writing contest, sharing with students. Do you got, I don't want to, are you Miss Patrick or Mrs. Patrick or what do your students call you? Oh, awesome. Love it. My students call me Joy too, because I'm a teaching artist. Yeah. Morgan, thank you very, very much. Yes. Cool. Moving into the second place category in our middle school division. Who do we have?
Place goes to Wishing for Purple by Juniper Boyd.
Also not able to be here. Another wonderful adult reader after your coming. Great.
Okay, well, Juniper did a great job weaving themes of family honor, yearning, dreams coming true, setting a beautiful world created totally out of her imagination. Our wishes on stars in our youth are not ignored. I loved reading them. They matter. They help us find who we were always meant to be. The world that she created, Juniper, they train girls to aspire to be a divine bride, and that's what she's worked for all her life. That's what her family has dreamed of for her. But she finds out a secret, or it's too late. You'll have to read and find out how this wraps up. She did a great job, Juniper. Good story.
Yeah. You want to? I don't want to take a photo. Take a picture. Take my notes. There you go. Thank you. Thank you. This feels pretty good. Cool. So I'm going to read on Juniper's behalf. Moonlight shines through the window, meant only for the sun. My roommates have all put themselves to bed, but I can't seem to stop thinking about tomorrow. You see, tomorrow is my 13th birthday and the most important assessment of any person's life. Tomorrow, a priest will observe me for a full 12 hours and report to the council what he sees. And then the council will evaluate what he's learned and deduce what my future is meant to be. I know that whatever I'm meant for, the council will figure it out. But I can't stop myself from knowing it must be something special. Oh, for Odussio's sake, I know what's expected of me, and it isn't as vague as special. I know it's wrong, but I make myself think it. I must be a divine bride, the most respected, exalted purpose a girl could be meant for. If I can succeed in being chosen, the embarrassment of my older brother will be gone. My shameful older brother, who was found to have no duty to the world and was thus removed. But if I can do this, my family will be known and respected. That is my true purpose. My parents have made it clear my real duty is to them. Without this honorable assignment, I will be a failure, and no failure will be accepted as my parents' daughter. I only have to prove to the council that Nativius, the god of birth, created me to be a bride. The only way to do that is to act like the perfect one. I can do this, I remind myself. I have prepared for it my whole life.
A lot of pressure on that end.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I keep reading it. Yeah. I'm gonna change you. Read it. Yay. Okay, so as you said, this person is probably aware, but for the rest of us, who is our first place winner in the middle school category?
First place goes to Triple Dog Dare by Violet Dunlop.
Hey.
There's a lot to like in this story too. Has dual timelines, which aren't easy to write. I'm working on one now and it's driving me crazy. Used those song lyrics from Lucy Dacus. And the ones that you chose were just so poignant and so meaningful as a backdrop to your story. Your writing is amazingly skillful, amazing mechanics, as well as story development. Your dialogue was realistic. Your word choices, they convey triple the meaning per word. Really good writing. The characters are engaging, well drawn. The idea of using the song lyrics was clever. I didn't give Violet credit for writing Lucy's song lyrics, but I gave her credit for the idea and using them so well. Most of the story, of course, was your words and using those. It was just a really rich layering of characters, and background, and a great story.
Dog, adult. Okay, great. Give me, let's make sure this good height for you, Violet. I like my last story was wishing for purple, and then your name is Violet. That's it. Feel for you. Yeah. Okay. Great.
It's funny, isn't it? Stargirl said. She reached her arms up, fingers straight as if she were grasping at the stars. The warm dusk breeze carried the scent of hyacinths from the mother's garden up to the two of us to the roof. What is? I asked as I draped my arm around her waist. It feels so right being with you. How could it be wrong? She sat up, picking at her plastic cup, not meeting my eyes. But everyone keeps telling me we'll go to hell because of it. I frowned at her as I sat up too, reaching out to take her hand. I don't believe it. If there was such a thing as heaven, most of us could never make it there. However people are going to act, nobody's a saint. And anyways, no one should be damned to eternal torture just for being in love. Stargirl's fingers tightened around mine. Maybe you're right, she whispered, leaning up against me, and looked at the fireworks showering the sky with glittering sparks.
Excited to go home and look up Lucy Dacus now too. It's gonna be like the soundtrack. Cool. Hey. Hey. Oh, we are gonna move into our big hit, the high school category. So this year, 20 of our 90 entries were in this category. 12 of those were from South Eugene High School, which brings us 3 winners this year from South. We also have 2 honorable mentions in this category this year. I think this must be, I'm so, again, grateful to our judges, and I imagine this is a really hard thing to do. This probably, there's probably hard break.
14 stories, 14, that's the best. Imagine starting with 90. Thank you for not sending me 90.
Welcome. Neat. Okay, so we have 2 honorable mentions, so let's do the first one. Who's the first honorable mention in high school?
Honorable mention in no particular order.
Yes.
And the first one is Birdsong by Emmett Coughlin. Story begins in mystery and ends in mystery. The story where every detail is important. I think I read yours 6 times. It was really well done. The ravens added a spooky touch to the atmosphere. There's a consistent feeling of desolation to the setting and the characters. Just makes you want to read and find out what's going to happen. Good job.
All right, Joe's getting theirs. Okay. Make sure this feels like a good.
Birdsong. The man with the brown hair steps off of his boat, the sound of songbirds. It is an odd time after a snow melt, when the pines weep tears and birds frogs play. The slushy water rushes up, altered only by its new rubber cages, and recedes, leaving stains of mud to let you know it was there. It was the time of year when the water starts to kiss instead of mud. His buckskin jacket rises and falls. A raven circles high above the snow tips of the tangled, sagging forest. Beth looks up from her watch. It has been a long time since anyone has seen her. From the strange man's pinstripe shirt, those polished leather shortcut shoes, you can tell he is. She averts her eyes when she catches sight of another, similarly dressed, but carrying a fearsome-looking Winchester. I ought to tell Pop, she thinks. The raven hops down from plants to look at some spilled seed, and it is puzzled by the girl running past her apartments. The raven takes flight.
Woo! Beautifully read. All right. Who is our, in no particular order, second honorable mention in the high school category?
Happy to announce that this honorable mention is given to Superscript by Ashika Chakrabarti. Sorry, I'm trying to practice it. Chakrabarti.
You're returning for the second time as a finalist in the high school category. Amazing. Okay, great. 2 times in.
Ashika, this story had the eerie feeling of maybe insanity. I was trying to figure out what you were going for. Frisia, the vessel, cracked stone shells, real cycles. And there was a little hint, Soteria, maybe a goddess, maybe a treatment for schizophrenia, Google said. Frisia, she's a sympathetic soul. I just ached for her. She's struggling to survive and get free. You allowed me to struggle as well with Frisia. I mean, that was a really effective technique. Nice writing.
Yay.
many a tree.
Oh, it doesn't actually mean it.
Oh, well, it doesn't.
Okay, it's pretty soft. Thank you. So,
23 rail cycles had passed. In the beginning, her head had been cleared, counting like second nature. As time shuffles by, does an hour hold meaning, a day, a week? Her vision blurs, her stomach roils, and it becomes a Sisyphean feat to remember. 23 is close enough. It has to be. Trust me, she speaks aloud into the wet air. Her lips are chapped, hearing her own voice is frightful. Any sense of preservation has been dulled to a flat, stagnant calm behind her ears. She can only pray that the vessel will not respond. Sometimes it tries to speak to her. Its voice is something out of the deep recesses of the earth, hoarse and quietly hideous. The incessant vibrations through her skull twist her into fetal positions, draw clenched to an uncomfortable ache until the vessel has exhausted itself. After, she begins to wander once more. That is all she can do. Wander until she's dizzy, until she's crawling on her hands and knees, splitting slick membranes with her bare hands to reveal more tunnels, more wandering. It isn't aimless, she tells herself furiously. Somewhere, someone might have to wait. During the fifth rail cycle, when the pulsing walls opened orifices into the ether, she'd catch glimpses of others like her. Soft faces, clean nails, weeping smiles. If her memory serves her, that is, it must have been the last time she experienced such a thing, for soon after, the vessel stitched its open wounds and made her a pitiable husk of a Once upon a time, Frisia liked to sing faintly to herself when the tunnels shrunk clean on themselves, bottlenecking her into tight crevices that stank charred meat and sour raw. Breathless tunes and mindless rhymes, the kind children repeat to themselves until your head starts to spin. The vessel made her stop. Too much it had groaned, and it did not sound anything like a person. Its words were not words, its voice more of a concept than a tangible thing. Frisia is still unsure how she understands, when each breath feels like her last, and each pulse of the floor serves as a reminder of her fate.
gorgeous reading. What an excellent, I forgot when we were backstage to talk about getting close to the mic, and that was a gorgeous example of that. Wonderfully read. We love having folks enter year after year. So yeah, thank you, especially when people even jump categories like elementary to middle to high school. It's really sweet to have folks become kind of a part of the cycle of this contest. Okay, so moving along. Third place in the high school category.
Third place goes to Rachel the Cyclops, A Christmas Tale by Catherine Diderot. I think we have a new Christmas classic. It's a very clever story told from the point of view of a Christmas package being mailed out. And its title is honestly my favorite of all your stories here tonight. You'll have to read it and find out what it means. Rachel decided it's so cute. I giggled over that for several months. It's so cute. I could tell you were having fun deciding which anthropomorphic qualities to give to this package as it traveled out into the town. And the result, your character, the package can have such personality. It was a curious, nervous, caring creation. A very fun Christmas story. Nice work.
We're crafters, that's our best audio book narrators. Hold on, I lost it, there it is. Yo has it all together. Jarwin.
Unlike Sunday, I have a confession. I did not quite get the title of this story until like yesterday or the Tuesday. And I was like, oh, I was going like Ragile CD or something in Christmas Tale. I just, yeah, I'm after a little oblivious. Apparently, they did not I did eventually. I was looking at it, I was like, oh, that's what it means. So, I did not impact my enjoyment of the stories. Here. The ran this side up. You oaf, and then dog. It hurts my ears. Sweet, jingly, jangly noises, and a different jolly tone sound from someplace scratchy nearby. I peek, and it's too bright. Hard white light blasts down on me from the packaging facility's lights above. Do you see this? Do you? This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're sloppy, Jerome. Sloppy and you don't listen. We want to look clean. You've smudged up. What is that? 4 boxes now. Keep your sleeves off the belt. Every time the madam emphasizes a biting word, I'm shaken about violently and slammed into another man. Get up and clean your shirt. You're covered in red. Now we've got 3 Jill and a Dracula. That's fantastic. I'm dropped onto a table and filled with soft pellets. A larger object is placed inside as well, and my 4 flanks are tucked tightly together, followed by a loud ripping that seals me with a sticky strip. I'm carried a few paces away, and with a heave, ho, puffed into a metal room.
Thank you, Joe. I hope you don't mind me saying that your accent was very perfect for that story. Fantastic read. Okay, second place. Who do we get to clap for?
Second place goes to Duty of a Killer by Michelle Diaz. Hey, I was wondering who wrote this story. I thought it might be a guy. I don't know. That was just me. I don't know. I did a great job. The writing is so vivid and arresting. There's a magical fox that balances out our flawed, wavering good of our main character, Kanego, against the evil of Taloke and the king. Kanego was born to be a killer. So will he realize before it's too late that he has a choice? And can he redeem himself for the things he's already done? Your language used for setting descriptions in the plot, really well chosen. It was very well done.
Woo!
Orchard will end soon.
Hey, all right.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. The copy of the book. It was so fantastic.
I was raised and nourished for this moment, but no one told me how long it would go. They never said it might end like this. Clouds scuttled across the sky, patches of pearl white moonlight pouring through the open window, bathing the room in a soft glow. The wooden planks, worn smooth by the years, glistened in the semi-darkness. The castle was soundless, the world still, as if held in a structured form, as if they, too, would try and wrap their minds on what I had done, what I could have done. Couldn't be true. Yet the glassy eyes and the crimson pools were differently, the pale face mocking me. My throat tightened, pain shredding through my chest like 1,000 tiny blades. It wasn't supposed to be this way. I clenched my fist, leather gloves creaking as I knelt before his crumpled form. I was born a killer, trained in silence, tested in the shadows. When my father had hired the best astronomer, he'd also unknowingly hired the best assassin, one who passed on his knowledge to those he chose. And he chose me. A life was supposed to have been taken this night, but not this one, not Cass. My hand moved of its own accord, brushing his eyes closed before my training kicked in and I was on my feet, leaping for the window, the rough fibers of the rope slipping through my gloves as I rappelled down the wall. The grass silenced my landing, and I sprinted across the grounds, my dark clothing blending my form with the shadows. Within a matter of minutes, I'd left the castle behind, leaves rustling under my strides as the dark forest closed in around me. What have you done? I should have been prepared for this. But no boy was ever prepared to steal the life of his little brother.
Oh my God. Good. Wow. God. Michelle, your professional fit is just amazing. Okay. Wonderful. All right, we have come to our last winner. First place in the high school category goes to
First place story is Sir Gwendolyn the Anxious by Brianna Bird.
tell you, Brianna is returning for the fourth and final time because she's graduating high school this year, right? Fourth-time winner, and we will hoping that maybe next year she will join her mom as a judge in this contest. Don't worry, Mom, do not judge the category she's in. We separate Karen into other. But yeah, thank you so much, Brianna, for being with us all these years.
Your story, Brianna, was just so fun, so rich with humor. Sir Gwendolyn and Dave. This story is a fresh, charming, humorous spoof on tales of knights and dragons from long ago. Even the dragon and the prisoners are clever and fun and funny. Sir Gwendolyn captures our hearts as we can relate to her failures, her fears, anxieties. It makes her a very likable and relatable heroine. She faces the unknown and grows braver and happier because of it. It's just a very fun story. Good job. And
Yay!
In the dark areas, or more commonly known as Dave the Dark Lord, was a very strange person. Dave had spent his 5 long ruling years as the Dark Lord atop Mount Tenebrae, and had realized that it was incredibly mental well-being. For one thing, it was extremely lonely, with only the occasional raven drifting by his window to company. For another thing, the distant cries of prisoners from his dungeon had been very alarming, and he was unable to relax at any time. It was also very dark, and although the rain was very soothing, the lack of plant life had extreme lessons in his overall happiness. That all changed one day, when Sir Gwendolyn embarked on her own quest. Shoved out the door from Father's Manor, with only a sword after debating a debilitating bout of anxiousness had yet again kept her from doing her farm chores, Gwendolyn decided to attempt to apprentice herself to some other lord who could appreciate her skilled swordsmanship. Combat training was the only thing that calmed her. Methodically improving her skills was all she could do after surviving a day in fear of being rebuked for her less than excellent sewing cooking skills. But this plan had also fallen short, when Gwendolyn realized that she would actually have to use those skills in relation to other people. Gwendolyn had run from Lord Barley's estate after a miserable day of attempting to joust 10 loud and very rude knights with no table manners or respect for the silence of libraries. She had not left, however, without hearing of the possibility of taming a dragon on an island on the edge of the kingdom. So, armed this time with a full suit of armor, Gwendolyn decided that she would succeed in her quest or abandon all other pursuits and come from it.
Yay! And gosh, another amazing clothing choice. I feel these authors have chosen their wardrobe in a manner that lines up with their story, which I love. Vibes. Okay. So just one more time, let's give a big round of applause. I want to say thank you very much. Before we get to hear the keynote speech, I just want to really thank you for the care that you put into reading these stories. I can tell that you took a really serious amount of time with them, gave such sweet and thoughtful consideration to every one of them. So yay! Thank you so much for that. Well, now it's my pleasure to introduce Sandy's keynote, the title of which is Write Your Best Story.
Tell us how to do it, Sandy.
Well, this is fun for me to be able to talk to you authors as an author. My debut novel came out about a year ago, and I've been giving a lot of book talks to kids who are reading my book. I've been talking about what inspired me to write that book, how my writer's journey, but tonight I just want to talk about how to write a great story, because all of you I knew had great skills, but I feel like all of us can keep learning. And so I hope my words tonight might be helpful in your writing journey. I'm not going to speak for more than about 15 minutes, so I'm not covering everything about writing, but I'm going to share some things that I've learned along the way, and I hope it will just speed you up a little bit on your path when you write your next story. So I have a friend who likes to tell me about movies or books that she's watched or read. She just drips out the details and then, and I don't even know what the point of it is, and I just want to escape. But I have a brother who might call me up and say, Sandy, I have a story to tell you. And right away I'm on the edge of my seat because my brother is not a writer, but he should be. He's a very good storyteller. He just teases it out. I know something amazing is going to happen, and I'm just on the edge of my seat. By the time he's done, I'm either laughing hysterically or gasping in shock. One of his recent stories had him on his roof washing his roof with a hose, and a flick of the hose caught the ladder and knocked it down. There was nobody else home, nobody expected for days. He didn't have his cell phone on. He lives in the country, and there are no neighbors close by. He had a dog. So, doesn't that just make you wonder what happens next? I wasn't escaping when he got to that point. So what makes a great story? What's the difference between those two scenarios? My friend with all the details dripping and my brother with something that really happened. I'm just going to talk a bit about how a great story should begin with a likable, or at least an interesting character, an intriguing premise with something significant that happens early in your story, like my brother's ladder falling, to make the reader want to keep reading. I'm going to say some things tonight that will cover most stories, but it won't cover every story because there are unusual ways to tell stories that can be very effective. So just take this with a grain of salt. So first, I'll talk a little bit more about characters. Many authors I know, in fact, start their books because they already have a character in mind that they want to write about. Other people begin with a plot idea, a premise. I actually have begun all of my manuscripts in my book with a setting in mind. So I just want to see by a raise of the hand how it is for our authors tonight. How many of you thought of your character first? Plot. The setting? Okay. Anything, something else? Could be a theme or something. Well, ideally, the main character should be the first person we meet in your story. After all, we will be experiencing the story through their eyes. They should be someone we want to spend time with, so you should make them interesting, three-dimensional, realistic, believable, and relatable. But don't be tempted to make them perfect. Do consider giving some flaws. Perfect people aren't relatable. None of us is perfect. However, Mary Poppins was practically perfect in every way. But, it turns out we really don't know much about Mary Poppins, that magical person. She just came as the catalyst in the story so that we could enter the story of the children, their parents. So consider these characters. And I'm going to mention a lot of movies because more people have movies in common than particular books, but I'll mention some books too. But you might not have heard of all of them, but hopefully most of you will have heard of most of them. So consider these characters. They arrive on page 1 of the story with flaws. Hermione is bossy. Harry Potter has trouble trusting adults in authority. Han Solo is arrogant and self-absorbed. Wilbur the pig in Charlotte's Web feels helpless. Augie in Wonder is insecure and forgets sometimes that other people have problems too. Roz in The Wild Robot acts, well, like a robot, lacking emotion and empathy. You can see by these examples, by giving these main characters significant flaws, there's a lot of room for them to grow and change throughout your story. And then also you want to make sure your characters are someone that we're going to care about. And one way to do that is to give them what's often called in screenwriting a save the cat moment. By this, I mean it's something that they do towards the beginning of your story. They do something kind for another person or an animal when nobody's watching them, when they're not forced to do it. And for one example of that is in the movie Aladdin. Aladdin works so hard to steal that bread, he gets away with it. And then what happens? He sees those hungry children and he gives his bread to those children. And a few moments later, he saves those same children from a whipping from the king's soldiers. Well, we immediately like this guy Aladdin, even if he is a thief. So for me, one of my biggest breakthroughs in writing was when I learned that the most important story is not the protagonist's external story, like destroying the Death Star, finding the lost Ark, but it's the development and change that happens within them as the story goes on. Of course, I enjoy writing action scenes and developing a mystery or suspense, and your readers love reading those things. But consider how we rooted for Luke Skywalker, because he began as a naive farm boy and became a skilled Jedi Knight. We were really engaged as we watched Indiana Jones, who began as a cynical, self-absorbed professor, became somebody with empathy, willing to sacrifice his personal gain to protect this valuable ark. So I learned about inner story from a woman named Lisa Cron. She's written 2 books on craft called Wired for Story and Story Genius. Recently, she was asked in an interview what she wished she had known when she began her own writing career. This is what she said. I tell myself that what grabs readers isn't beautiful writing necessarily, or a rip-roaring plot, or surface drama. What grabs readers is what gives those things their meaning and power, the story itself. And so first you have to create the story, which doesn't start on page 1, but long before it, because the story is not about an external plot level change. The story is about an internal change, a change that the protagonist enters the story already needing to make. Thus, the protagonist walks onto the first page with a long-standing driving desire that she hasn't been able to achieve because an equally long-standing misbelief or lie about human nature stands in her way. Many of you did this really well in your stories, by the way. You began your story with somebody that was imperfect. I just want to think of Sir Gwendolyn right away. Dave, which was it? Dave, yeah. I mean, both of those were very flawed characters. There was a lot of room for change and a lot of fun to learn their stories. So your character stories actually begin perhaps years before the story you're writing begins, because we all have backstories. You and I are meeting today for the first time. Our story together starts right here on May 22nd, but we've all had many experiences, happy times, sad times. And those things explain our fears, our anxieties, our anger. Early in your character's life, they begin to start to believe a lie about themselves. And then this lie, overcoming this lie, can become the focus of the change that you create in your character as you're writing your story. You should really think about your backstory for all of your main characters. Even if it doesn't ever get written on your page, at least you'll know what's motivating and explaining your character's actions. So maybe your character thinks they can never be good at anything, or maybe they can't have a good friend, or they're never going to trust another person, or perhaps it's something more specific like believing the world's going to end in a year, so what's the use of doing homework? But your job in writing the story is to keep putting them in situations that test that lie until they break free from it. The tougher the challenges you give your protagonist, the greater the potential for transformation. There's a suspense thriller writer named Dean Koontz, and he created this very good list about how you should treat your main character. Plunge your main character into terrible trouble as soon as possible. Everything your character does to try to get out of that trouble makes it only progressively worse until his predicament appears hopeless. Finally, everything your hero learns from trying to get out of that terrible trouble builds in him what he needs to succeed in the end. But don't give him a break. Don't make his life easy. Conflict is the engine of fiction. So once your character is tested under fire, that lie that he or she believed will be shown for what it is, and the resolution of your story, your happy ending perhaps, will come from that place of new perspective. So now that you have a great character with flaws, what's next? What's going to happen? What will the action be? Stephen King says, put interesting characters in difficult situations and write to find out what happens. So the premise of your story is going to be some desperate situation that calls for someone to do something about it. And to launch that situation, that premise, every story needs a catalyst, often called an inciting incident. It's the thing that happens near the beginning of the story that changes your character's normal world into a challenge, and there can be no going back. One way to brainstorm for a good premise is by asking what-if questions. I'm going to ask some what-if questions, and then I want you to try guessing the movie I'm describing. You can just raise your hand when you think you know. What if you are the only person who wakes up from your hibernation pod too early on a 300-year voyage to a distant planet and realize you're going to grow old and die before you reach the destination?
Passengers.
Yeah, I think we just watched that one this year. It's kind of, I think, a newer movie. Okay, what if a troubled child summons the courage to help a friendly alien escape from Earth and return to his home planet? Yeah, that's an old one. What if a paleontologist visiting an almost complete theme park on an island in Central America has to protect two children after a power failure causes the cloned prehistoric creatures to run wild? After his son is captured in the Great Barrier Reef, taken to Sydney, what if a timid clownfish sets out on a perilous journey across a treacherous ocean to bring him home? Yeah, that's it. What if an orphaned boy enrolls in the School of Wizardry where he learns the truth about himself, his family, and the terrible evil that haunts the magical world? Is there a hand that's not up? There you go. Okay, two more. What if a girl is swept away by a tornado from a farm in Kansas to a magical land where she joins up with a brainless scarecrow to embark on the quest to see the only one she believes can take her back? Yes. That's it. Good. Last one. Emily uses her power to turn things into ice. So her sister teams up with a mountain man, his playful reindeer, and the snowman to change the weather. Everybody, ciao. So once you have your idea for a premise, you really should first test it and decide if it can carry a full story. So my brother on his roof was an interesting incident, but it doesn't yet have enough intrigue, conflict, stakes to make a full movie or novel. But would you still like to know what happened to him? Yeah, okay. My talk. He stayed up there for a couple more hours pondering. And then realizing that no one was coming, he surveyed the ground on all sides. And he saw a little hill not too far away. And he thought, well, surely I should jump to the highest. So he took that courage, he jumped, he broke his foot, had surgery, but he's okay today. Lived to tell. But he told me a good story. Okay, here are 3 more story premises we're going to pick apart that turned out to be very successful. See if you can guess what these are. A young man is transported to the past where he must reunite his parents before he and his future cease to exist. I mean, I haven't seen Terminator. Okay, one more. A cowboy doll is profoundly threatened and jealous when a spaceman action figure supplants him as top toy in a boy's room. It's a blockbuster, so successful. I would say each one has a very interesting main character. Each one has an exciting situation or premise that kicks off with an inciting incident. The main character is thrown into a situation they have to solve or face dire consequences because there are stakes. Every story must have stakes. It must matter if your protagonist succeeds or fails. Your story needs stakes. Now, stakes don't always have to be life and death. Once you've made us fall in love with your character and you care about them, we just want to see them get their heart's desire. We want their dreams to come true. But if there are no stakes and it doesn't matter, we're going to stop reading, honestly, for most part. So you can't expect your readers to keep going if there aren't any stakes, if nothing's at stake. So you can throw in a ticking clock, and that's all the better. If they don't reach their goal by X number of days, they perish, or somebody does, or it's very bad. Ticking clocks can be the asteroid that's going to collide with Earth, the bad guys who are closing in, the food on your Mars space station that's going to run out in 1 more month, or an explosive set on a timer with a literal ticking clock. So another important consideration when writing a great story is to select the perfect setting for your particular story. It's an important piece of your story. It becomes almost like another character with its own feelings, and it emotes emotion in us. Imagine if Charlotte's Web was set in a spaceship to Mars instead of the Zuckerman's farm. It just wouldn't be the same story. Or The Girl Who Drank the Moon in an Arizona desert instead of a forest filled with dangers. Or the story Free Water in the Rocky Mountains instead of the Great Dismal Swamp. The setting you choose should be appropriate to your story and strengthen your plot and your character's development to make your story more interesting. And if you're writing fantasy, and several of you did, you get to build a whole world out of your imagination. Just make sure your readers understand how your world works so that as they watch your character go through life in that world, they can get tense about perhaps a rule being broken or a place they might get into trouble. So with a flawed character, a great premise, an inciting incident, a setting, that's enough to get you through a pretty good first draft. But remember that you need to go through several revisions if you're going to really perfect your writing. And when you're revising, just a couple things to think about. Can you make your character even more interesting? Can you make your premise more exciting? And maybe you'll do this with your author's voice and your writing style. Your author's voice is just the words that you choose and the tone you set. It could be creepy or humorous or both, and it makes me think of Neil Gaiman's The Graveyard Book. Or you could take an old story and tell it from a fresh angle, kind of like Sir Gwendolyn, but you could even be more specific, like the Lunar Chronicles that Marissa Meyer wrote and took the story of Cinderella and wrote Cinder. But maybe you will make yours stand out because you'll have these epic plot twists that nobody saw coming, but when they do, your reader says, oh yeah, I should have seen that. It makes sense. I just read a book a couple weeks ago called The City of Ember by Jean Dupro. Have any of you read that? It's such a good story. It has great twists at the end that really were so fun to read. So I'm going to wrap this up, but I would just encourage all of you to keep writing. You already have a great foundation of talent and experience and skills. So just keep building on that. And whatever you do in life, writing is just an amazing superpower for you to take command of. It will take you places anywhere you go in life. You're off to a great start. Thank you for entering the contest because I got to meet your stories and now all of you. So congratulations again to all of you for the awards you won tonight.
Thank you again, Sandy Rupp. And of course, you will get to meet Sandy at the back very shortly here. So the last thing I want to say to you tonight is, well, there might be three. Okay, one, we would be more than happy to continue supporting you in your writing journey in any way we can. We've got some awesome middle school camps this summer. Write Club happens on an ongoing monthly basis, and there's lots of good stuff for adults too. We got all that info for you. We also are just so grateful for the folks who help support us. If you'd like to make a donation to WordCrafters, there's information about how to do so on the back of this program. You make this happen. Thank you so much. Before I let you all go, I want to let you know that before you disperse, you don't have to do this right this second, but I'm going to need the authors, the young writers, to come up here one more time together as a group, and we're going to have a final group pick opportunity with our celebrity judge, Sandy. So that is our last thing of the night, after which we have lots of copies of the book available back here. Of course, you have one that you got as part of winning. You get your copy. But if you would like to buy copies for other family members, we've got them for you. Sandy will be back there with her book. And just one more time, on behalf of WordCrafters, I want to just say, yay, not only to the folks who got it for the public tonight, but also the other stories that we didn't get to hear, those 130,000 plus words that got written. I want to honor all of them here tonight. And we do hope that if you are still in school, you will consider entering again next year. And the last thing I'm going to do is introduce next year's theme. Okay, are you ready? Woo! All right. In 2026, when the contest opens again, the theme will be Alchemy of Courage. So let that simmer. Okay, yeah, come on over here. Let's go on with this. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for all your time.
Yes. We'll do a photo.
You guys can stand on it. Yeah.
Okay, wait. We got Vicky Warren. You Rose. You tell me about 10 you like the people that you don't know around you with anybody. And now I've seen 1,000 photos and promise them everyone on their windows and and not, you know. Put something to you. No. Yeah. Maybe other. Okay, yeah.
We took a picture of here.
Yeah. And you know what, I would. No, I'm just gonna be. You're. Get back to Mr. Young. Please.
That's a great idea. You're trying to do the bookends. Great.
That's not fair. Yes, one. Shit. Let's put, it's like, wow, I don't know. It's, right. Yes, she actually. Now, I'm.
No, I didn't think we're in. That's fine. So fun. All right, we have 7 to get out. Oh, I need to turn off that. I don't want to do it.
Thanks for joining us on the live stream where the sound finally worked. Bye. See you next year. Oh, there's 2 people apparently still watching this. Thanks so much for being here. Bye.